it's Erin with Time Saving Templates, and usually I am here with Excel spreadsheet tips and tricks to help you save time. And if you've been following along with the last few videos, we've been doing several examples on working with locations and addresses in your Excel spreadsheets. And most of those examples, I've been using different scenarios from working with data in HR or compensation, even though there's so many different other scenarios that you may be working with addresses in Excel. But today I wanted to take a minute to go a little bit further into some of the key compensation concepts that I've been using, and also this will help for some future videos that we're doing. So if you work in HR compensation, you may stay tuned and watch this video, but if you're not in HR or compensation, you still may want to look at the other videos if you're working with location data in Excel, but this one I'm just going to go over from the compensation perspective. So I'm going to be going over the key elements for working with geo zones for salary structures, and we're going to be looking at how that works with salary survey data, the cost of labor, and cost of living. That's the type of data that we're looking at specific to different locations. Okay, so this gives you just an example visual, a couple visuals of how a geozone in compensation in HR might work. So the whole purpose, companies, they look at certain geographic areas that the company defines, and they look to differentiate pay based on cost of labor or cost of living for those specific locations. So creating these zones or categories can help make sure that the compensation is competitive and fair relative to local market conditions. So basically that's saying that it's just another way of grouping. So in this example, there's 4 different colors that have different salary ranges. So the light blue, Texas, Utah, Florida, all paid similarly. And these grouping or category names, they can be named anything that the company wants them. I've seen them called geos, so A, B, C, D, E, F. Usually it's just 3 to 5 if they have that many. Tiers, it could be called a tier 1, 2, and 3. It could be called a zone 4, 5, 6. It could also be called regions. So the northeast region, you're just going to define what locations fall within each zone. So for this example, zone definitions below here, just an example, zone 1 could be large metro areas with high cost of living, typically New York, San Francisco. Zone 2, maybe mid-sized cities with a moderate cost. And zone 3 being smaller towns or a lower costs. So that's just an example. And one other thing about these geo zones is these 2 examples, it's only US, but you may have geo zones in other countries. For example, in the UK, you may have a certain metro area that pays higher than the more rural areas. So you can definitely have geozones in different countries, but not typically having multiple countries defined by the geozone, because it's typically within one currency. So this would be 3 zones. They're all paid the same currency. So the 2 approaches to developing and analyzing if you need a different geo zone is, the first one is going to be looking at the market data, and that's coming from salary surveys. So we're going to go over salary survey data, but from the examples, it's going to be a dollar value amount. So 50,000, for example, for customer service reps located in Texas. Or it's going to be a percentage, a differential percentage could be displayed as 109% or 1.09, or it could be 9% above the national. Usually national average is used as the 100%, but not always. You may not have a tier or geozone using the national average. The next slides, I'm going to go over how the differential is calculated if you only have the market data, because that's where cost of labor is pulled from the actual raw market data. So I'm going to go over how the salary survey data works. And then we'll also look at cost of living, which is calculated very differently than cost of labor. So with that, to understand the cost of labor and the differential percentage, we typically in compensation, we're going to be relying on salary surveys. Sources for salary surveys, you're typically going to be purchasing the salary surveys from a large consulting company or maybe smaller professional associations. There's some examples here. Radford, Mercer are the very large companies, or you may find industry specific associations and have smaller surveys, but they're all specific to your industry. Okay, so that's where you can find survey data, but how does it work? So basically, the companies that participate, they're just going to report what they're paying for all the different jobs at the company. So what's important here is that it should be based on the job description, and job titles can vary by company, but it's not always the same job description just because you have the same title. So survey participation, this is an example of what it would look like with a small amount of just two jobs. Usually company A, B, and C, they'll be matching and reporting all their jobs. So it could be hundreds of jobs. And for this example, there's customer service reps and accountants. Well, they're probably not all having the same title at each company. So they're going to need to consider the job descriptions, the job family, and the level. So maybe a customer service rep 3 at one company is the same as the customer assistant senior at another company, something like that. You're going to look at the survey company's description and they're all going to match it and report the data. And then the survey company collects everybody's data and then they create different summaries that don't give away which company is paying what, but kind of gives us the market data. So this would be a small example of just 4 jobs of what you might get from a salary survey. The 25th, 50th, and 75th percentiles, and as well as the count. So this might be company. Usually you'll see 2 counts, the company count and the employee count. Typically we look at the market 50th percentile, which is the median. So I had a little explanation for median down here. I have other videos that go over percentiles and medians, but when we're looking at the example where we may call it, or I may call it median or market data, that's usually the number I'm referring to. You can get this data specific for national average, or this could be Southwest region. So usually have to pay for different cuts of the data sometimes, or sometimes the price from the survey company includes like all the different data cuts they have. Obviously, the larger the survey company, the more companies know about it and participate, and you're able to get this data at a specific location level. That is one way of looking at location data, is just looking at the dollar value by location. Now, with the other way that we could do this in compensation is looking at having a differential. With a geo differential, we typically have, maybe this one, it says tier A. This could be national. It's at 100%. If this is 100% tied to the national salary range for the country, then we can easily do calculation to get someone that's paying 120% or 90% of the national. And we can take, so this calculation to get tier B and C, we would just be applying it to the salary range and not doing all the analysis with jobs if we're able to get a report with these differentials. I'll be going into more examples over this in the Excel spreadsheets, but just for this example, it's to get tier B, we're just taking the midpoint of tier A times the 120%, so 82 times 120%, and that's giving us the midpoint for tier B. So that's the value in having the differential percentage. Makes it a little bit easier. But to determine that tier B should be 120%, we're going to look at the survey data. So some companies will give you a report that says the percentage difference between national and this specific location is 120%. And then you don't have to do any calculation. But the way they're getting this is they're looking at the median for different jobs, and they're saying, so for this first example, they're comparing the national median to the area median. So the area could be New York, it could be, so let's just say it's New York. So they're paying 2.7% above national median. They're getting this percentage difference by calculating area median minus national median divided by national median. That's giving us 2.7. To get a differential percentage that we can use, similar like this, we would take the area median divided by national median, and then we get 102.7. So then we can apply that 102.7. You see it comes in different amounts, so you could also check, okay, when the median's 110, the area median is now 105, so this is a negative. So there is some variance within the location. There's going to be variance for different jobs and things. So that is just the basic overview of how, when I talk about working with the differential percentages, that's kind of where that comes from. And then last but not least, the cost of living versus cost of labor. I just wanted to touch on the difference between these two because sometimes they are confused. Although they typically correlate with each other, they're calculated in very different ways. Cost of living could still be useful in compensation, even though probably for salary ranges, we would rely more on cost of labor, but there are scenarios where compensation is using cost of living. So basically, the main difference, cost of living, I've talked about the cost of labor and the salary survey data and that kind of thing. But cost of living is not based on salary surveys. It's based on an analysis of what it takes to purchase certain items across different locations. Just general things like housing, food, transportation, that most people, they just pick a sampling of things that most people would be purchasing, and they see how is it different across the different locations. So cost of living is not going to be affected by the skill set or the skill level of the job. It's not going to be affected by what industry you work in, but it's affected by location. So that's what these two have in common. You can find cost of living data more readily available, or you can find it for free, but I think there's also survey companies that do their own analysis as well. I hope that helps. We're going to be going into more detailed and specific examples in Excel, but I wanted to be able to refer back to this video to give you some more background and high-level overview of what these different terms mean for compensation. So stay tuned for the next videos. Don't forget that we have some free resources here at timesavingtemplates.com/free resources. There's some different options for HR compensation metrics cheat sheet. And then we also have rental property management and small business. as well as a free guide to get you started with Excel. Until next time, don't forget, I'm here to help you streamline and save time when it comes to working with your Excel spreadsheets. Thanks.